In the unfathomable silence that falls the moment humanity vanishes, the world shifts in ways both subtle and profound. For millennia, the soundscape of Earth was shaped by the rhythms of nature, only to be overlaid in recent centuries with the ceaseless hum of machines, voices, and industry. Now, that cacophony comes to an abrupt halt, not with a bang or an explosion, but with a hush that spreads like a curtain lowering on the last act. Across continents, cities stand still, lights flicker for the last time, and streets so long crowded with life grow eerily quiet, as if the planet itself pauses in shock and wonder at its sudden solitude. Within the first moments, the mechanized routines of civilization attempt to carry on in humanity's absence. Traffic lights switch from red to green for no one, and elevators pause between floors, their passengers forever missing. Highways, once the arteries of cities, fill with abandoned vehicles stretching toward forgotten destinations. The digital networks that once knitted the world together stutter and fail. In countless homes, devices display blinking error messages while refrigerators hum until the last surge of electricity fades, leaving everything plunged into darkness. Above the empty cities, the sky begins to reclaim its dominion. The haze of smoke, pollution, and artificial light thins, and for the first time in centuries, the stars return in their full glory. Telescopic views that were once the realm of high deserts now grace every corner of the globe. The Milky Way blazes over metropolises and rural towns alike, a silent testimony that the universe carries on unconcerned by the fortunes of one vanished species. The mood is not merely one of desolation, but of strange expectation, a feeling that something ancient and powerful is awakening from beneath the constructed veneer of civilization. Nature detects the change almost immediately. Birds begin to venture into zones previously deafened by traffic and activity, their calls echoing along empty boulevards. Rodents, emboldened by the lack of human movement, scurry through parks and alleyways, searching for new sources of food and shelter. Domesticated animals, left to their own bewilderment, wander the now aimless labyrinths of urban life. Dogs and cats, some confused and others desperate, form new bonds or revert to the instincts of their wild ancestors, searching for survival strategies that will carry them into this altered era. Industrial systems react to the void with a mixture of violence and stillness. Power grids collapse one after the other as coal and nuclear plants run out of fuel or shut down for safety. Hydroelectric dams hold back rivers for a time until sensors fail and spillways open, sending torrents of water downstream. Unchecked, these surges erase human-engineered boundaries, restoring the ancient courses of rivers. In chemical plants and refineries, hazardous materials go untended, corrosion and neglect lead to leaks or explosions, sending toxic clouds drifting into the night. Fires spring up where sparks meet dry fuel, but without emergency crews, they burn unchecked, sometimes devouring entire districts before running out of material to consume. Even in the chaos of abandonment, there is a strange sense of order emerging. Grass and wildflowers push through cracks in the pavement, while moss and vines insinuate themselves into the smallest crevices of concrete and glass. Gardens once tamed for beauty escape their boundaries and merge with the wild. Roots buckle asphalt and break apart foundations, while trees drink greedily from storm drains and overgrown lawns. Parks, medians, and derelict lots blend into a single palette of green, a patchwork of untended beauty, thriving where it was never meant to be allowed. Over the first night, millions of domesticated animals' livestock, pets, and zoo creatures face the first challenges of true independence. On farms, cows break through fences in search of water, while chickens and pigs scatter into the surrounding countryside. Some species possess the cunning or aggression to adapt quickly, foraging and forming new social hierarchies. Others, bred for docility or specific traits, falter or perish, outcompeted by more adaptable wildlife. The cold arithmetic of nature surfaces as species capable of adjusting survive, while the most dependent ones vanish, a quiet echo of extinctions past and future. In less than 24 hours, the boundaries between wild and urban blur further. Coyotes, foxes, raccoons, and even larger predators edge back into territories long denied by noise and violence. With surprising speed, they explore streets and parks, investigating empty homes and raiding shops for edible remains. Some stumble through broken windows or doors left ajar, setting the first waves of animal life in motion, movements that, over generations, will shift the balance of entire ecosystems. Birds nest in lamp posts and traffic signals, swallows and starlings fill the skies once reserved for commuter flights. Inside homes, remnants of human life begin to decay. Refrigerators thaw, seeping water and rot across kitchen tiles. Paper wilts in bookshelves, newspapers collect dust, and cupboard food is invaded by rodents and insects. Rooms fill with an unfamiliar quiet, events and conversations arrested mid-flow. Streets and alleyways collect anew detritus, dead leaves, windblown trash, the lost toys of vanished children, all gradually incorporated into nature's slow recycling process. The physical symbols of human presence erode, and the cityscape acquires a new layer of randomness and disorder. Yet, this new world is not entirely at peace. In laboratories, freezers defrost and samples spoil. Medical supplies, no longer monitored, degrade in dusty hospital storage rooms. Seeds stored in vaults await no planting, genetic blueprints for future crops left as memorials to a vanished scientific ambition. Factories, their machinery seizing and corroding, stand as monuments to a sudden halt in creation, the half-assembled products of human labor collecting dust beside now useless tools. Beyond the cities, rural landscapes undergo dramatic change. Crops wither in their fields as irrigation ceases, greenhouses overheat or freeze as the climate dictates. Farm animals break away, some returning to feral states over generations while others perish from neglect and predation. Fences rust and collapse, allowing wild deer, boars, and other mammals to migrate through once ordered pastures. Streams and ponds, relieved from pesticide and fertilizer runoff, begin to recover clarity and biodiversity, but not without bearing the scars of decades of contamination. Mountains, valleys, and forests register humanity's absence first as a drop in noise and light, then as the gradual collapse of infrastructure. Roads buckle under seasonal cycles of freezing and thawing. Trails disappear beneath leaf litter and new growth. Power lines snap in storms, and telephone poles gradually topple, adding their creosote-soaked logs to the organic decay. Hikers, campers, and vehicles no longer disturb the routines of wildlife, allowing animal populations to expand, territories to stretch, and migration corridors to open for the first time in memory. At the coast, ports and marinas fall silent. Ships drift at anchor or run aground as winds and currents dictate, eventually splintering on shoals or sinking in storms. Fishing fleets are beached by inattention, releasing decades of pressure on marine stocks. Whales, dolphins, and fish migrate freely, following ancient patterns free of sonar, nets, or pollutants for the first time in generations. Seabirds reclaim piers and rooftops, nesting undisturbed among rusting containers and empty warehouses. Perhaps the most remarkable change unfolds in the sky and water. Without the hum of engines, jet trails, and fuel spills, the air and seas begin to purify. Smog clears from city skylines, sunlight penetrates deeper into coastal waters, fueling blooms of plankton and sea grasses that nurture marine life. Overhead, the cycles of birds, bats, and insects observe long-lost patterns, reclaiming habitats no longer threatened by pesticides, traffic, or artificial lighting. Even as radiation and toxins linger from humanity's industrial age, the first signs of natural healing are visible in cleaner air and the sparkling clarity of rivers and lakes. From desert to jungle, tundra to wetland, the planet assembles a new chorus. Some voices are old wolves howling from freshly reclaimed hillsides or monkeys exploring empty resorts, while some are newcomers, thriving in the mosaics left behind by human design. Pollinators like bees and butterflies bounce back in numbers, revitalizing plant populations and helping trigger new rounds of ecological succession. The intricate connections suppressed or severed by humanity's rule begin to mend, reweaving the broken fabric of ecological networks. Human monuments, cathedrals, statues, bridges, towers stand as brooding relics above the returning wilds. For a time, their grandeur persists, testaments to ambition and creativity, but without maintenance, they soon show signs of weathering and decay. Weeds root in foundations, wind, water, and frost carve new lines in marble and steel. Birds nest atop columns, trees grow through pavements, and waterfalls pour through ruptured pipes or bombed-out buildings. Step by step, time and nature erase the neat boundaries that once defined the human world. In this first phase, the documentary lens moves slowly, stirring both awe and sadness, a meditation on change that is neither wholly tragic nor entirely hopeful. The world does not end with humanity's exit, rather, life pivots, adapts, and continues on a new and unfamiliar trajectory. Gazing down from satellites that will remain in orbit for years to come, Earth's landscapes seem both recognizable and alien, caught between the recent past and the wild potential of a future without human stewardship. And so, as the sun sets on the very first day of a humanless planet, Earth's oldest laws quietly reassert themselves. Every void is filled, every silence eventually broken, every ruin slowly consumed or transformed. The story has only just begun, a story not of endings, but of reawakening. The pulse of life, ancient and unbroken, gathers strength amid the fragments of a vanished civilization, ready to write its next chapter in the long, unhurried history of the living world. As the days pass after humanity's sudden disappearance, the planet continues on a path of quiet recalibration, where absence weighs heavily but renewal stealthily gathers momentum. The initial shockwave of inactivity gives way to a new rhythm, ancient, wild, and unmediated by human intervention. The air clears further, temperatures fluctuate with calm irregularity, and ecosystems, long restrained, begin to stretch their boundaries. The silence deepens, not as emptiness but as fertile space where countless living things, seeds, fungi, insects, and animals conspire in nature's slow but inevitable reclamation. Cities that once symbolized human ambition transform into vast biomes where nature begins to overtake concrete and steel. Wiring inside buildings corrodes, insulation crumbles, and glass windows shatter under the assault of weather and time. Skyscrapers, once proud and gleaming, cast their shadows over forests, pushing upward through cracks in sidewalks and parking lots. Vines and moss embrace facades, trees crack through roads, and roots sever structural supports. Walls collapse in slow-motion avalanches, creating rubble fields where insects nest and small mammals scamper. The geometry of urban planning dissolves into organic forms, reminding the world that nature's patience surpasses human pride. Public parks, once mown and manicured with pristine intent, evolve into rich wildernesses. Flowers bloom unchecked, their pollen scattered by bees whose populations soar without the burden of pesticides. Dead leaves and fallen branches form thick layers of mulch, nourishing a diversity of fungi and microorganisms that play crucial roles in regenerating soil health. Birdsong fills these spaces with renewed vigor, joining the chorus of calls echoing from forests edging ever closer. Water features stagnate and teem with amphibians, while wetlands expand into erstwhile playing fields, drawing in herons, ducks, and countless insects that lay eggs in their warm, teeming pools. Rivers born or altered by human engineering break free from their artificial confines as dams and levees fail through neglect or weather. Sediment flows resume natural patterns, building deltas where species gather in great numbers, creating nurseries for fish and feeding grounds for migratory birds. Floodplains swell and shrink with seasonal rains, encouraging diversity in plant species adapted to shifting water levels. The riparian zones blossom into verdant corridors hosting countless insects, amphibians, and mammals. Salmon and other anadromous fish begin recolonizing reaches long blocked, heralding a reconnection between oceans and inland waters. Farm fields, abandoned without cultivation, undergo drastic transformation. The monocultures favored by agriculture are replaced slowly by a patchwork of wildflowers, grasses, and woody plants. Pioneer species, those quick to colonize disturbed soil, flourish initially, stabilizing the ground and inviting other species to follow. Burgeoning shrubs and young trees push aside predecessor crops, weaving a tapestry of successional growth. Wild animals take advantage of open spaces to forage and breed, while insects proliferate, reviving food webs altered by decades of human interference. Soil microbes recover complexity as fertilizers and pesticides dissipate, rebalancing nutrient cycles, carbon exchange, and soil structure. The absence of humans quiets noise pollution, allowing for profound behavioral shifts in animal populations. Birds sing longer, their calls carrying across broader territories, free from urban cacophony. Nocturnal species venture earlier into twilight zones, expanding their active hours. Marine mammals, whales, dolphins, and seals explore coastal waters with ease, vocalizing in the absence of ship engines and sonar. Migratory routes, once disrupted by shipping lanes and coastal development, re-establish timeless pathways, connecting feeding and breeding grounds. Even terrestrial mammals respond to the quiet, expanding territory sizes and engaging in complex social behaviors once suppressed by human presence. Large predators, freed from the pressures of hunting and habitat loss, begin bold movements back into territories they had abandoned or never reached. Wolves roam closer to former human settlements, their howls ringing beneath moonlight. Mountain lions and bears reclaim forests and foothills, reshaping food chains with the return of apex control. In some isolated regions, animals once thought extirpated or endangered rebound vigorously, demonstrating resilience in ecosystems relieved of human aggression. These carnivores regulate herbivore populations, preventing overgrazing and fostering plant regeneration, thus reinforcing balance in the healing landscapes. Zoos, wildlife sanctuaries, and breeding facilities face tragic uncertainty. Many animals habituated to human care struggle or perish, others escape confinement, blending into wild populations. Selective pressures act swiftly, favoring those that can adapt to the untamed conditions. The once enclosed and curated worlds become fractured theaters of survival, illustrating the delicate balance humans had artificially maintained for centuries. This unintended experiment in rewilding offers grim lessons in dependence, resilience, and the brutal economics of nature when stewardship ends abruptly. Pollinators experience a renaissance as insecticides vanish and flower populations recover pace. Bees buzz industriously, butterflies flutter by hundreds, and beetles scratch in the fallen bark. Pollination triggers explosive growth in plants, accelerating forest regeneration and increasing genetic diversity among wildflowers and trees. This resurgence cascades through food chains, benefiting birds, mammals, and reptiles that rely on flowering plants for sustenance and shelter. Nature's partnership between flora and fauna rekindles itself, thriving in the absence of anthropogenic chemicals and habitat destruction. In contrast, invasive species introduced or spread by human activities find some regions unopposed and expand aggressively. Plants, animals, and insects that establish dominance through competitive means exploit the disruption and claim new territories. These biological interlopers sometimes alter soil chemistry or hydrology, outcompeting native species and reshaping habitats unpredictably. The dynamic between natives and invaders becomes a new ecological drama, complicating recovery and adaptation. Over centuries, evolution may rebalance these relationships, but short-term outcomes remain fraught with uncertainty. Industry's sudden silence leaves toxic legacies in soil, water, and air. Chemical plants, abandoned mines, and waste disposal sites leak pollutants that threaten nearby flora and fauna. Heavy metals, acids, and complex hydrocarbons accumulate in sediments and groundwater, poisoning food chains and stalling natural regeneration. Sporadic fires at chemical storage facilities release plumes of noxious smoke, causing temporary die-offs or shifts in species distribution. Microbial populations evolve pathways to metabolize or sequester these toxins gradually, offering hope for long-term healing, but the path is arduous and slow. Nuclear facilities, deprived of active cooling and maintenance, present some of the gravest environmental hazards. Without human intervention, spent fuel pools overheat, and some reactors undergo meltdowns, releasing radioactive materials into air, soil, and waterways. Exclusion zones spread around these sites, barren of human life yet paradoxically showing signs of ecological recovery as wildlife moves into these contaminated enclaves. Radiation persists for centuries, altering mutation rates and ecological dynamics in complex ways, creating both dangers and evolutionary experiments on the edge of survival. Radioactive contamination paints a grim contrast against burgeoning greenery, a reminder that human impacts may endure well beyond the occupant's tenure. Microplastics, dispersed widely in soils and oceans, enter food webs where they accumulate in organisms large and small. Synthetic chemicals from industrial runoff or waste leak into rivers and marine ecosystems, stressing microbial communities and marine life. Despite the overwhelming resurgence of life, these invisible pollutants create lingering imbalances, a chilling testimony to humanity's relatively recent but intense footprint. As urban light fades completely, the night sky transforms into a spectacular canvas. Stars, planets, and distant galaxies blaze with unfiltered brilliance, their light unimpeded by atmospheric pollution or city glow. Nocturnal animals, freed from disorienting artificial illumination, navigate and hunt with greater efficiency. This celestial renaissance fosters renewed solid interactions between Earth and sky, linking biological rhythms anew to lunar phases, star patterns, and seasonal cues long masked by human interference. Wind patterns, no longer altered by heat islands or massive buildings, regain their natural flows. Air currents carry seeds, spores, and odors across landscapes, facilitating plant dispersal and animal signaling. Weather systems encounter fewer human-induced microclimates, resulting in subtle but important shifts in precipitation, temperature distribution, and storm formation. These changes ripple through ecosystems, influencing migration, breeding cycles, and plant phenology in synchronized dance with Earth's internal clock. Across continents, natural fire regimes reassert themselves. Without human-managed burns or suppression, some regions experience longer intervals between fires, allowing forests and woodlands to mature. In others, fuel accumulation triggers intense wildfires, reshaping vegetation patterns dramatically. Fire returns as a key ecological process, destroying old growth but renewing soil fertility, maintaining species diversity, and opening habitats for fire-adapted plants and animals. Over time, ecosystems fine-tune relationships with fire once more, evolving toward new balances. The cryosphere, free from industrial pollution but still influenced by previous climate change, continues a trajectory of change. Glacier retreat in many regions, releasing fresh water that reshapes downstream rivers and wetlands. Permafrost thaws, releasing methane and carbon dioxide in feedback loops that affect future warming. These processes test resilience in alpine and Arctic biomes, where species face shifting temperature and moisture regimes. Nevertheless, life endures, adapting in real time or retreating into refuges carved by ancient climatic cycles. In the oceans, the absence of fishing pressure allows populations of fish, sharks, and marine mammals to rebound gradually. Coral reefs begin remarkable regrowth in areas spared from warming or pollution, their kaleidoscopic formations home to vibrant communities. Ocean currents stabilize without anthropogenic alterations, enhancing nutrient distribution and life cycles. Migration paths of whales and sea turtles re-establish with fewer obstacles. Yet, acidification and temperature rise due to pre-existing greenhouse gases continue challenging survival, an ongoing testament to the long shadow cast by human industrialization. The microbial world, often overlooked, surges in complexity and function. Soil bacteria and fungi flourish as they break down organic matter, transform pollutants, and cycle nutrients. Oceanic plankton, the foundation of marine food webs, responds to clearer waters and altered chemistry with shifts in species composition and productivity. These microscopic pioneers underpin all ecosystems' recovery, maintaining balance and enabling higher life to thrive. Their unseen activities symbolize renewal on a scale both small and monumental. As the months turn into a season without humans, the land hosts new interplays between species and environments. Pollination, seed dispersal, predation, and competition form emergent webs of life shaped by freedom from human control but also influenced by human legacies. Ecological succession unfolds rapidly in some places, slowly in others, weaving a tapestry where old growth and emerging habitats coexist in dynamic tension. The once rigid borders between wilderness and human habitation melt away into a seamless wild. Cultural landmarks, temples, and monuments stand as silent sentinels to the vanished era of human dominance. Weathering softens their edges, lichen and moss coat their surfaces. The stories engraved in stone and metal are slowly swallowed by nature, leaving faint traces for future explorers or archaeologists yet to come. These relics remind that even the greatest human achievements are transient, dwarfed ultimately by the forces of time and the vastness of Earth's natural cycles. In this profound moment of transformation, the planet reveals both vulnerability and extraordinary strength. The wounds inflicted by humanity are real and deep, yet recovery begins in countless forms and places. The dynamic interplay between ruin and resurgence illustrates nature's enduring will, adapting beyond human comprehension. Earth does not mourn for the absence of humans, it quietly prepares and adapts for the millennia ahead, where life will redefine itself anew. This phase, the first months after humanity's disappearance, is a crucial turning point. It encapsulates the paradox of loss and hope, destruction and regeneration. It is a testament to life's tenacity, to Earth's capacity for healing, and to the complex legacies of our presence and absence. The quiet unfolding of this silent transformation resonates profoundly, a story not of human triumph, but of Earth's eternal dance, ceaseless and magnificent. As months accumulate into years without human presence, the transformation of Earth deepens, becomes more complex, and reveals the profound consequences of humanity's footprint alongside nature's relentless drive to reclaim and renew. The silent rewiring of ecological and geological systems unfolds in patterns shaped by both sudden releases of tension and gradual unfolding processes, where scars persist even as new rhythms take hold. Cities and towns, once epicenters of human culture and industry, crumble further into ruins while becoming vital habitats for flora and fauna. The degradation that began in the immediate aftermath accelerates. Buildings collapse under their own weight, roofs caving in, walls buckling, concrete rebar rusting through. Debris littering streets slowly decomposes as moss, fungi, and lichens colonize stone and metal surfaces. Urban wildlife, from scavenging birds to raccoons and foxes, exploits these new niches, adapting to environments that no longer harbor human threats but retain remnants of human design. With infrastructure failing, water distribution networks cease altogether. Pipes burst and leak, causing localized flooding and saturation of soils with contaminants previously sequestered or diluted. Abandoned reservoirs and drinking water plants stagnate, transforming into marshes and ponds that provide critical breeding grounds for amphibians, insects, and birds. Sewage treatment plants, no longer maintained, overflow, releasing nutrients and pathogens into waterways and wetlands, triggering new cycles of ecological imbalance that ecosystems must adjust to over time. The cessation of energy production and industrial activity produces a marked drop in atmospheric pollutants. Carbon dioxide emissions plummet, aerosols vanish, and particulates settle worldwide. While this leads to clearer skies and fresh air, the atmospheric greenhouse gases already emitted linger, continuing to trap heat and drive climatic shifts. Some regions witness subtle drops in temperature caused by aerosol clearing, but the overall warming trend continues, affecting precipitation patterns, storm frequencies, and ocean currents. Regions long accustomed to specific weather regimes experience new challenges as ecosystems must adapt or migrate under shifting conditions. Climate change, locked in by previous centuries of emissions, drives increased variability and extremes. Some areas face intensified droughts, others suffer catastrophic floods or unseasonal storms. These extremes cause habitat fragmentation and stress populations already struggling to cope with the absence of human management. Plant and animal species experience range shifts, some thrive in new niches, others vanish. The pace of evolutionary pressure accelerates as organisms navigate this turbulent new normal. Forest recovery is notable yet non-linear. In many regions, young, fast-growing trees dominate initial succession, filling voids left by agriculture and urban abandonment. These secondary forests differ structurally and compositionally from old-growth stands, often more vulnerable to fires, pest outbreaks, and drought. Nevertheless, they provide essential canopy cover, soil stabilization, and carbon sequestration. Over decades, ecological dynamics favor the gradual return of diverse tree species and fauna, rebuilding resilience but bearing the imprint of altered climate and human legacy. Wildfires, natural and recurring, surge in many ecosystems. Fuel accumulates rapidly without controlled burns or human suppression. Lightning strikes and spontaneous combustion ignite vast areas, reshaping landscapes in ways both destructive and regenerative. Fires clear deadwood and invasive species, releasing nutrients locked in organic material back to the soil. Fire-adapted species flourish, seeds germinate, and new habitats emerge, sustaining dynamic ecological mosaics that cycle over decades. Wetlands, critical carbon sinks and biodiversity reservoirs, rebound dramatically as agricultural runoff halts and rivers resume free-flowing patterns. These habitats expand and deepen, inviting migratory birds, amphibians, and small mammals. Riparian forests re-establish along streambanks, reducing erosion and improving water quality. However, legacy pollutants from pesticides and heavy metals complicate full recovery, requiring centuries for natural attenuation processes to reduce toxicity. The oceans reflect a complex duality of recovery and challenge. Fish stocks begin to rebound in the absence of commercial fishing, allowing predator-prey relations to stabilize and reefs to recuperate. Coral bleaching events reduce in frequency and severity where water temperatures modestly cool, giving corals time to regrow. However, ocean acidification persists, threatening shellfish and coral calcification processes. Plastic debris, microplastics especially, continue to plague marine life, sinking into sediments and bioaccumulating through food webs, an enduring testament to human-made pollution. Marine mammals respond positively to quieter seas. Whales, dolphins, and seals increase in numbers without vessel collisions or noise disturbances. Migration routes lengthen, birth rates rise, and social behaviors resume natural patterns. Coastal ecosystems flourish as estuaries and mangroves regenerate, offering protection against storms and providing nourishment to juvenile fish and birds. Yet toxic pollution from legacy industrial waste and oil spills challenges these gains in localized hotspots. Terrestrial herbivore populations explode in many regions, fueled by absence of hunting and increased forage availability. Deer, elk, bison, and smaller ungulates repopulate grasslands, forests, and abandoned farmlands. These population booms intensify grazing pressure, sometimes hindering plant succession and leading to local overbrowsing or soil compaction. Predators partially control herbivore numbers, but imbalances persist, producing mosaic landscapes of health and degradation in complex cycles. Large carnivores balance these herbivore expansions but face new pressures from altered habitats and fragmented territories. Populations of wolves, cougars, bears, and big cats increase in refuges, expanding into previously inaccessible zones. Their presence restores trophic cascades, benefiting forest regeneration and ecosystem balance. However, fragmented corridors and isolated populations create genetic bottlenecks, with some species at risk of long-term decline without natural connectivity. Species extinction slows but remains a pressing reality. While many animals and plants recover, some species, especially those highly specialized or with limited ranges, succumb to habitat loss, invasive species competition, or changing climatic conditions. Ecosystem functions reassemble differently, reflecting a new balance shaped by chance, evolution, and the legacy of human disturbance. Novel ecosystems emerge, distinct from pre-human or human-dominated landscapes, underscoring the complexity of biotic recovery. Invasive species introduced by humans continue to challenge native biodiversity. Plants such as kudzu, cane toads, and feral pigs thrive where natural predators are absent. Their impacts ripple through food chains, displacing indigenous species and altering nutrient cycles. Control by human intervention ceases entirely, allowing invasives to consolidate dominance. Over centuries, evolutionary pressures may mitigate or exacerbate these effects, with unknown outcomes for future ecology. The microbial world, responding to altered soil and water chemistry, adapts rapidly. Proliferation of bacteria and fungi specializing in breaking down synthetic compounds becomes evident. Microbial communities recolonize former industrial sites, metabolizing pollutants but also releasing byproducts affecting adjacent flora and fauna. These tiny organisms drive biogeochemical cycles essential to ecosystem function and recovery but also shape new patterns of toxicity and regeneration. In urban ruins, microbial and fungal colonizers accelerate decay, breaking down materials once thought impervious. Concrete, plastics, and metals degrade slowly but visibly. Structural collapse increases as materials lose integrity, toppling bridges, tunnels, and buildings. Over time, the urban fabric reverts to terrain with mixed rubble and soil, providing irregular habitats for wildlife. Archaeological stratifications form, recording human presence and technological development for future geological epochs. The legacy of radiation from nuclear accidents and facilities creates long-term exclusion zones. Wildlife, surprisingly resilient, reoccupies these contaminated lands but with altered genetic and physiological characteristics. Radiological genes mutate, generating evolutionary experiments with unknown directions. Persistent contamination affects water quality and food webs, producing patchworks of safety and hazard in landscapes that both suffer and surprise ecologists. Atmospheric chemistry shifts with the balance of emission cessation and degradation of stored pollutants. Ozone layers begin to recover, reducing harmful ultraviolet radiation. Air composition normalizes progressively, benefiting respiratory health in recovering species. Persistent organic pollutants slowly break down but remain detectable in soils and water. These chemicals affect reproductive rates and survival in sensitive species, posing subtle but significant constraints on ecosystem restoration. The carbon cycle undergoes major rebalancing. Forest regrowth and peat accumulation sequester carbon, reducing atmospheric concentrations. Oceans absorb less CO2 as biological processes stabilize. Over centuries, these processes mitigate some climate impacts but do not reverse them entirely. Feedback loops, such as thawing permafrost releasing methane, introduce uncertainty and risk in climate trajectories. The hydrological cycle gains steadiness with the abandonment of dams, water withdrawals, and land alterations. Rivers flood naturally, replenishing aquifers and wetlands. Rainfall patterns become less influenced by urban heat islands and deforestation. Freshwater availability redistributes, affecting plant communities and animal migrations. Yet legacy pollutants in soils and sediments create challenges for clean water, requiring slow natural purification. Cultural artifacts and human-made materials stratify into geological formations known as the Anthropocene layer. Plastics, synthetic compounds, and isotopic signatures form markers for future geologists or extraterrestrial visitors to detect a vanished technological civilization. These layers, though uneven and fragmented, testify to the scale and intensity of human impact on Earth. The night sky remains unpolluted by artificial light, allowing celestial navigation and natural rhythms to govern nocturnal species. Lunar cycles, star positions, and seasonal changes shape reproductive and migratory behaviors more clearly. This reweaving of biological time with cosmic cycles underscores the interconnectedness of life and environment absent human interference. As vegetation and wildlife proliferate, food webs realign in intricate networks. Predator-prey relationships stabilize, herbivore browsing patterns shape plant communities, and decomposer organisms recycle nutrients efficiently. This dynamic balance fluctuates with environmental changes but overall supports resilience and adaptability in recovering ecosystems. Marine coastal systems regenerate as human exploitation halts. Seagrass beds, mangroves, and tidal marshes expand, providing essential services such as carbon sequestration, storm buffering, and spawning grounds. These habitats support biodiversity and protect shorelines from erosion, increasing ecosystem stability against sea level rise and storms. Economic and social systems once reliant on human labor collapse entirely, leaving natural processes to govern landscapes without intervention. Flood control infrastructure, irrigation systems, and agricultural terraces disintegrate, allowing landscapes to revert or transition to new ecological states shaped by soil, water, and climate without human modification. Volcanic activity, tectonic shifts, and geological processes proceed uninterrupted by humans. Earthquakes, landslides, and mountain building continue reshaping physical geography over long timescales. These processes influence climate, habitats, and species distributions independent of biology or human presence. The evolutionary clock advances as new pressures emerge. Species adapt, migrate, diversify, or vanish in response to altered conditions and interspecies competition. Novel traits arise through mutation and natural selection, beginning new chapters in life's diversification on Earth. The story of life continues, informed by but independent from the legacy of an extinct intelligent species. In these many ways, the planet transitions from an epoch dominated by human civilization to one governed by broader ecological and geological forces. The effects of humanity's rise and fall are etched into the surface, oceans, and atmosphere, yet Earth's resilience shines through. Life perseveres, diversifies, and evolves, narrating a timeless saga of endings and beginnings intertwined. As decades roll into centuries, the planet embarks on a profound chapter of transformation beyond the immediate shock of humanity's sudden absence. The world's ecosystems, shaped by unfathomable time spans and intense biological interplay, begin to write new chapters in the saga of life marked by the complex legacies of human impact yet resiliently driven by Earth's inherent powers of renewal. This era is not merely a story of decay or recovery, but of irreversible ecological shift, evolutionary innovation, and geological redefinition. Urban landscapes, once majestic testimony to civilization's triumphs, have largely surrendered to the forces of nature. The collapse of infrastructure accelerates as materials weaken, corrosion spreads, and roots fracture foundations. Forests, saplings transformed into mighty giants, dominate former cities with dense canopies and rich understories. Wildlife flourishes amidst ruins, birds nest in arches, mammals navigate rubble, insects swarm decomposing wood and leaf litter, and fungi decompose synthetic remnants. This integration of wildlife with relics of human architecture becomes a vivid symbol of nature's persistence and ingenuity over manufactured permanence. Large-scale geophysical processes progress unhurried yet relentlessly. Mountain ranges erode and grow through tectonic forces, river deltas shift with sediment deposits, glacier wax and wane with climate oscillations. These changes continuously reshape habitats, soil quality, and water flow, influencing the biological communities that inhabit them. Earth's slow dance with its physical forces remains a backdrop for the drama unfolding in the living world, highlighting the interplay between geology and biology. The Anthropocene's geological footprint endures visibly and chemically. Layers of plastics, microplastics, heavy metals, radionuclides, and synthetic chemicals are etched into sediment and ice cores, durable markers for future geologists and extraterrestrial observers alike. This epochal signature serves as a fossil record not of flourishing life but of a powerful species that once altered planetary systems on an unprecedented scale. While these residues persist long after human DNA has faded, they gradually become substrates for novel microbial communities, slowly reshaping biochemical cycles and soil chemistry. Forests matured over several human generations become complex ecosystems reminiscent of ancient woodlands, yet bearing new compositions of species. Some trees long favored or planted by humans give way to native pioneers, often with altered species distributions due to past habitat fragmentation and invasive species presence. These ecosystems exhibit greater biodiversity and structural complexity than the post-human early successional forests, supporting intricate food webs and stabilizing soil and atmospheric carbon. Wetlands, tidal marshes, and floodplains have expanded irregularly where human dams and levees deteriorated, creating mosaic landscapes of open water, reed beds, and forested swamps. These habitats provide critical ecosystem services including water filtration, carbon sequestration, and storm buffering. They serve as vital refuges for migratory birds, amphibians, fish, and mammals, anchoring biodiversity hotspots in a fragmented world. Natural fire regimes have reasserted dominance without human interference. Fire cycles maintain ecosystem health in some biomes, suppress succession in others, and shape plant reproductive strategies. Fire-adapted species dominate these landscapes, creating dynamic mosaics of post-fire regeneration, establishing new ecological trajectories. These cycles influence not only plant communities but also soil chemistry and nutrient availability, underscoring fire's fundamental role in Earth systems. Grasslands and savannas, dependent on fire and herbivory, respond dynamically to altered herbivore populations. Ungulate communities have evolved novel grazing patterns influenced by predator-prey dynamics absent human hunting pressures. These interactions shape plant diversity, productivity, and landscape heterogeneity, contributing to resilient ecosystems that endure climate variability. Animal populations have reshaped habitats dramatically. Herbivores expanded their ranges, triggering trophic cascades that influence vegetation structure, soil compaction, and nutrient cycling. Large carnivores, apex predators in many systems, maintain herbivore populations in check, preserving ecological equilibrium. Species migrations influenced by climate shifts continue, often faster than anticipated, leading to novel community assemblages and unexpected interspecies interactions. Biodiversity trends over centuries demonstrate complex patterns. While some endemic and specialized species succumb to habitat loss and competition, many generalist and opportunistic species thrive in new niches molded by evolved landscapes. Evolutionary processes accelerate in response to novel pressures and opportunities, driving speciation, extinction, and hybridization events, crafting a living tapestry continuously woven by ecological and evolutionary feedback. Marine ecosystems recover slowly but progressively. Coral reefs, damaged by prior warming and acidification, show patchy regrowth in cooler regions and refugia. Fish populations rebound, restoring predator-prey balance, but remain sensitive to climate-induced habitat changes. Ocean chemistry gradually returns toward pre-industrial states but is hindered by persistent acidification and microplastic pollution. Coastal wetlands prolong coastlines and provide critical nursery grounds, mitigating erosion and increasing biodiversity. Deep ocean systems continue to reveal resilience but also vulnerability. Species composition and food web dynamics shift with changes in nutrient flux and temperature. Hydrothermal vent communities, isolated and ancient, are relatively unaffected by surface extinction but may face future impact from spreading pollutants. Marine biodiversity patterns reflect long recovery timelines constrained by ocean currents and biological life cycles. Invasive and introduced species, once facilitated by human movement, persist and evolve within ecosystem networks. Their complex interactions with native species lead to novel community compositions and altered ecological functions. Some invasives integrate with endemic species, forming new evolutionary lineages, others dominate and reduce diversity. Over centuries, Evolutionary and ecological forces mediate these dynamics, often unpredictably. Soil systems re-establish intricate food webs involving bacteria, fungi, invertebrates, and roots, which regulate decomposition, nutrient cycling, and carbon storage. Microbial diversity increases with the breakdown of synthetic pollutants and organic matter. These processes underpin forest and grassland resilience, influencing plant succession and landscape fertility through feedback mechanisms essential to ecosystem sustainability. Climate change manifests as a persistent force shaping ecosystems within the bounds of anthropogenic legacy. Temperature rise, altered precipitation, and extreme weather events drive species migrations, reproductive timing shifts, and altered metabolic rates. Extreme events such as droughts and floods intensify, challenging ecosystem stability but also fostering adaptation, new niches, and ecological turnover at landscape scales. The cryosphere, shaped by ongoing warming, undergoes glacier retreat, permafrost thaw, and polar habitat contraction. These changes affect global sea levels, freshwater availability, and biogeochemical cycles involving carbon and methane. Polar and alpine biomes witness rapid transitions in species assemblages and ecosystem function, demonstrating ecological responses to amplified climate forcing. Atmospheric composition and circulation gradually normalize with reduced pollutant emissions. Ozone layer recovery protects terrestrial and aquatic life from harmful ultraviolet radiation. However, legacy greenhouse gases maintain warming trends, sustaining altered climate states and influencing feedback loops between biosphere and atmosphere. Earth's hydrological cycle, liberated from anthropogenic modification, resumes more natural rhythms. River flows fluctuate with seasonal and climatic variability, aquifers recharge, and floodplains inundate naturally. Wetland complexes expand in connectivity and function, enhancing biodiversity corridors. These developments improve ecosystem health and resilience but are vulnerable to ongoing climate variability. Human cultural and industrial legacies become integrated into geological and biological systems in multifaceted ways. Synthetic chemicals serve as substrates for unique microbial communities. Abandoned urban sites provide novel habitats for colonizing species. Archaeological ruins become ecological niches hosting diverse flora and fauna, embedding human history within Earth's living matrix. Light pollution returns to natural darkness, allowing nocturnal species to thrive and circadian rhythms to synchronize with celestial cycles. The night sky's visibility re-energizes ecological timekeeping, reproductive cycles, migration, and foraging behaviors align with natural lunar and stellar cues. This realignment enhances ecosystem function and biodiversity robustness. Evolution proceeds on new trajectories shaped by altered environmental pressures, climate gradients, and species interactions. Novel traits, behaviors, and even species emerge in response to new ecological opportunities and challenges. Evolutionary innovation accelerates at ecological interfaces where niches open and competition drives adaptation. Lastly, Earth stands as a planet bearing the indelible, complex traces of a species vanquished by its own power yet survived through its resilience and renewal. This deep future chronicles the transition from a world dominated by human industry to one where life evolves independently, adapted to new realities, and continues the timeless dance of survival. The legacy we left remains clear but is interwoven now with the ever-changing, vibrant tapestry of the living planet. Centuries after humanity's final disappearance, the Earth enters a prolonged, nuanced phase of transformation, marked by the entwined processes of degradation, adaptation, and renewal. This era unfolds in slow, colossal rhythms played out not in human years, but in epochs where geophysical forces, climatic shifts, and biological evolution continue to redefine the planet's landscapes and ecosystems. The absence of human agency allows Earth to proceed on a trajectory shaped both by the heavy echoes of human impact and the unstoppable momentum of natural processes. Urban ruins have largely succumbed to the inexorable forces of decay and weathering. The tallest skyscrapers, once symbols of human ingenuity, collapse into chaotic mounds of rubble covered by thick forests. Roads and bridges dissolve under the persistent blows of rain, frost, and moss. Metal rusts away, glass shatters and scatters, eventually buried beneath layers of organic material. Only some stone monuments and structures, pyramids, large temples, and mountain carvings persist partially intact, serving as faint geological markers of a vanished civilization. These relics undergo erosion but endure in layers of sediment for millennia, bearing witness to a species that once reverberated across the globe. Landscapes once dominated by agriculture have transformed into mosaic wildernesses. Former farmlands revert to diverse ecosystems, grasslands, shrublands, regenerating forests, and wetlands carve natural borders shaped by topography and climate. Soil composition stabilizes as synthetic chemicals slowly degrade or become embedded in sediments. Nutrient cycles, long disturbed by fertilizer use, rebalance through microbial activity and plant diversity. This renewed fertility supports robust plant communities which foster animal populations adapted to the new environmental conditions. River systems, long subdued by dams, levees, and water diversion, have reclaimed free-flowing courses. Without human control, they meander naturally, flood regularly, and rebuild fertile floodplains that recharge aquifers. New wetlands form, expanding biodiversity hotspots and filtering sediments and pollutants. Fish populations regenerate in enhanced spawning grounds, and migratory birds flock to these restored aquatic refuges. However, legacy pollutants such as heavy metals and persistent organic contaminants continue to complicate recovery, requiring extended time to attenuate their effects. In oceanic realms, the surface and nearshore ecosystems witness notable recovery stages. Coral reefs blossom in refugia where warming and acidification pressures lessen, providing critical nursery habitats. Fish populations rise, predator-prey dynamics stabilize, and marine vertebrates flourish absent the shocks of industrial fishing. Ghost nets and marine debris gradually fragment, while microplastic presence continues to disturb the foundational planktonic food webs. Open ocean ecosystems experience shifts in species composition as climate-driven ocean currents and chemistry evolve over centuries. In terrestrial ecosystems, herbivore and carnivore populations adjust within changing habitats. Ungulates expand and diversify, influencing vegetation structure and nutrient recycling. Carnivores regulate herbivores, creating balanced food webs that foster species richness and ecosystem stability. Migration corridors reconnect fragmented habitats, albeit altered in configuration and size by climate-driven geographical shifts. Evolutionary processes accelerate as species diverge, hybridize, and innovate adaptations for surviving in changing environments. Biodiversity patterns display complex dynamism shaped by climate forces, invasive species, and emerging ecological networks. Native species often bolster recovery while invasive organisms occupy niches vacated or not reclaimed by earlier fauna and flora. These interactions give rise to novel ecosystems mixing lineage histories and ecological functions. Over millennia, this dynamic fosters resilience, though with unpredictably altered community compositions. Fires regulate ecosystem structure with enhanced natural frequencies and intensities modulated by climate. Fire-maintained habitats grow richer biologically, favoring specialized species and encouraging nutrient cycling. Succession cycles in fire-affected regions produce heterogeneous landscapes supporting a diversity of plant and animal life. Soil systems support complex biotic interactions critical for ecosystem function. Fungi, microbes, and invertebrates efficiently decompose organic matter and industrial residues, promoting nutrient availability. Stable soil profiles emerge that regulate water retention, carbon storage, and root support for plants. Earth's subterranean life flourishes in diverse niches, sustaining above-ground ecological productivity. Climate change fueled by past human activity continues to influence global habitats. Persistent greenhouse gas concentrations drive warming trends, precipitation variability, and extreme weather. These effects act as selective pressures shaping species fitness and distribution. Some ecosystems adapt by migration or phenotypic plasticity, others contract or transform. Feedback such as thawing permafrost release additional greenhouse gases, generating complex, self-reinforcing cascades affecting biogeochemical cycles and climate stability. Polar and alpine ecosystems witness pronounced changes due to glacial retreat and warming. Ice-free zones appear, generating new habitats while existing species face novel selective pressures. Sea ice decline alters marine productivity and predator-prey dynamics influencing Arctic and Antarctic food webs. Permafrost degradation releases carbon and methane, further influencing global climate while modifying soil and hydrology. Atmospheric cleansing progresses with reduced aerosol and pollutant emissions, restoring partial ozone layer recovery and enhanced solar radiation quality. This fosters improved photosynthetic efficiency and ecological productivity in terrestrial and aquatic environments. However, persistent toxins and long-lived pollutants linger in soils and water, subtly impacting species' health and reproduction. Hydrological cycles stabilize in more natural regimes as altered by climate shifts. Precipitation patterns, evaporation rates, and water availability moderate ecosystems' drought and flood responses. Wetlands expand, promoting biodiversity and reinforcing carbon and nutrient cycles. Connectivity among aquatic habitats improves, supporting migration and life history requirements for amphibians, fish, and aquatic mammals. Human artifacts become indistinguishable from natural parts of the landscape over millennia. Plastic and metal debris fragment and degrade chemically and biologically. Fungal and microbial colonization accelerates decay, while some durable ceramics and stones survive as geological time capsules. These artifacts, buried in sediment or exposed on eroded surfaces, chronicle a vanished civilization's reach and influence. Bioluminescent and nocturnal species flourish with complete return to darkness. Natural light cycles govern hormonal regulation and behavioral patterns, enhancing reproductive success, foraging efficiency, and predator avoidance. These natural rhythms regulate population dynamics and interspecies interactions, supporting ecosystem health. Evolutionary novelty thrives on isolated refuges and ecological transitions. Species radiate into new niches created by environmental heterogeneity and climate shifts. Genetic diversity increases through hybrid zones and founder events. Novel symbioses form, fostering ecosystem complexity and adaptive capacity. These evolutionary developments reflect life's ongoing creativity beyond human-mediated influences. In this deep-time future, Earth's living systems embody a complex mosaic of recovery processes, legacy effects, and ongoing adaptation. The planet endures profound changes precipitated by human absence yet shaped indelibly by human legacy. Life persists, diversifies, and innovates in ways that bridge epochs, symbolizing the planet's enduring vitality and resilience in a world forever altered. The disappearance of humanity marks not merely the end of an era, but the beginning of a prolonged geological and biological saga where Earth's processes unfold on scales exceeding human comprehension. Across millennia, natural forces gradually erase, reshape, and, paradoxically, memorialize the extensive imprint of a species that transformed the planet in a fleeting instant of geological time. This part explores Earth's deep future through the lens of geology, evolution, and planetary change processes unfolding at the grandest temporal scale. Urban and industrial ruins have been extensively dismantled by millennia of weathering, erosion, and biological activity. Concrete structures dissolve chemically, metals oxidize and crumble, and glass fragments are buried beneath successive layers of sediment and soil. In some cases, durable stone monuments and large-scale earthworks survive as isolated, eroded features, ghostly landmarks visible only in the geological record. The aggregated remains of human civilization form a distinct stratigraphic layer and Anthropocene horizon marked by unique technofossils including plastics, synthetic materials, concrete-derived calthemites, and industrial minerals unique to the human technological epoch. Drainage patterns embossed by ancient roads, canals, and urban grading continue to influence underlying erosion and sediment flow in continental landscapes. Quarry sites, mining tunnels, and former agricultural terraces are now scars and terraces in the landscape, presenting geological evidence of past human extraction and environmental modification. These features interact with natural processes of sediment transport, soil formation, and vegetation regrowth to create heterogeneous terrain mosaics. The Anthropocene epoch, representing humanity's geological legacy, is characterized by distinct chemical, physical, and biological signatures. Persistent pollutants such as radionuclides from nuclear activities, heavy metals, and long-lived synthetic compounds embed in soil and marine sediment layers, tracing an era of intense industrial activity and technological innovation. Microplastics, a pervasive marker of human influence, are incorporated into sediment profiles and found globally in terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems. Biologically, Earth marches forward with remarkable resilience. Plant and animal species, shaped by evolutionary forces over these millennia, adapt to new climatic regimes and ecological dynamics. Novel ecosystems arise, blending remnants of ancient lineages with emergent species born from altered habitats and evolutionary pressures. The evolving biosphere reflects a complex interplay of extinction, adaptation, speciation, and ecological succession, life's continuous response to planetary change. Forests cover much of the former human habitats, their oldest trees marking centuries or millennia of unbroken growth. These primeval woods differ fundamentally from pre-human forests in composition due to species extinctions, introductions, and ongoing climate shifts. Old growth conditions foster biodiversity hotspots vital for ecological services including carbon storage, water regulation, and soil conservation. Many native species flourish here alongside descendants of invasive species introduced by humans centuries prior. Grasslands and savannas derived from abandoned agricultural land simmer with life and variation. Fire regimes and herbivore grazing sculpt these regions, maintaining open habitats and promoting biodiversity. Large herbivore populations cycle naturally, influencing vegetation patterns, nutrient recycling, and predator-prey relationships. These landscapes act as transition zones between forested and desert biomes, expanding and contracting in response to hydrological and climatic cycles. Wetlands and floodplains evolved profoundly after human water management collapsed. Rivers re-established natural meandering, flood dynamics, and sediment deposition cycles, revitalizing aquatic and riparian habitats. Expanded wetlands increase water purification, carbon sequestration, and act as buffers against extreme weather. Migratory birds, amphibians, and fish abound within these reconnected ecosystems, reinforcing biodiversity and ecosystem resilience. Ocean ecosystems escape the direct hand of fishing and pollution, yet persist beneath the long shadow of chemical and temperature legacy. Coral reefs exhibit resurgence where waters cool, serving as keystone habitats in tropical biodiversity. Fish schools thrive in protected migratory corridors and nursery grounds. However, ocean acidification, driven by thermodynamic and chemical legacy, retards calcification in invertebrates, influencing food web structures and reef stability. Microplastic sediments continue to impact benthic communities. Marine mammals, largely free from anthropogenic threats, populate oceans in robust numbers. Their social structures and breeding cycles stabilize, restoring functional marine trophic levels. Coastal ecosystems regenerate, including mangroves, salt marshes, and seagrass beds that protect shorelines and provide key habitats. Yet human-derived toxins like mercury persist in ocean sediments, causing localized toxicological effects in marine organisms. Soil ecosystems, crucial for terrestrial life, reach an intricate balance of microorganisms, fungi, invertebrates, and root networks. These systems drive decomposition, nutrient cycling, and carbon dynamics essential for ecosystem functioning. Biogeochemical cycles normalize but retain signatures of industrial contamination, influencing species composition and productivity. Over millennia, increased microbial diversification evolves pathways to break down synthetic pollutants. Climate continues to be a volatile force. Elevated greenhouse gases lock in warming trends, altered precipitation, and increased frequency of extreme events. Glacier recede, polar ice melts influence sea levels and circulation. Polar and alpine biomes evolve rapidly, facing novel selective pressures. Ocean currents and atmospheric patterns restructure, influencing continental climates and ecological zones. Atmospheric chemistry shifts toward pre-industrial levels as aerosols diminish and ozone levels recover. Solar radiation penetrating Earth's surface enhances photosynthetic activity and ecosystem productivity. Persistent pollutants limit full recovery, but natural purification processes progressively cleanse air, soil, and water. Hydrological systems revert to dynamic bridging of terrestrial and aquatic biomes. River flows and flood cycles follow natural rhythms, fostering ecosystem connectivity and resilience. Wetlands serve as buffers against climate variability, sustain biodiversity, and regulate waterways. Geological process continues shaping Earth's surface independent of biology. Tectonics produce mountain building, volcanic activity, and seismic events that reset landscapes and create new habitats. Erosion and sedimentation sculpt continents, oceans, and basins over millennia, modulating climate through carbon sequestration and albedo change. Human artifacts, plastics, industrial deposits, and construction residues integrate into sedimentary deposits and fossil strata. These technofossils provide future paleontologists key markers distinguishing the Anthropocene from prior epochs. Lunar and Martian surface artifacts from human exploration persist with negligible erosion, bearing silent testimony to an extinct technological civilization. Biological evolution proceeds apace with climate and ecological drivers shaping species adaptations, new lineages, and extinctions. Genetic diversity arises through mutation and hybridization, novel ecological niches emerge fostering complex species interactions. Life's tapestry grows richer and more intricate beyond the shadow of human dominance. The deep future of Earth is a collage of renewal and scars. Ecosystems ebb and flow in shifting balance influenced by biosphere-atmosphere feedbacks. Geological and biological processes persist in an eternal interplay, creating, destroying, and remaking. Earth bears the signatures of a vanished species, but life endures as the ultimate force governing the planet. Stretching into the deep future, millions of years after human extinction, Earth's geological and biological narratives converge into a panorama that transcends the memories of any one species, yet carries indelible marks of a civilization that briefly turned the planet upside down. This epoch, a distant memory carved into rocks, sediments, ice, and living systems, reflects the paradox of impermanence and legacy, where life's resilience confronts the vast science of deep time, charting paths of renewal amidst irrevocable change. Throughout this vast temporal expanse, tectonic processes and geomorphological forces operate relentlessly to reshape Earth's surface. Mountains rise and fall as plate collisions push and pull landmasses skyward or bury them beneath oceans. Rift valleys open, shaping new seas and altering climatic flows. Volcanoes erupt, injecting aerosols, gases, and lava that renew the atmosphere and crust. Through these cycles, remnants of human-influenced cities, mines, highways are buried under kilometers of sediment, yet some vestiges endure as fossilized technofossils, whispering stories of an extinct high-tech species. Sedimentological records reveal spikes in erosion, deposition, and anthropogenic materials, forming unique geological strata that future geologists would recognize as the Anthropocene layer. Vast accumulations of plastics and synthetic compounds become part of the fossil record, preserved in landfills, river sediments, and ocean beds. Heavy metals, radionuclides, and industrial byproducts embed within rocks and ice cores, imprinting chemical signatures that distinguish this era from Earth's natural geochemical history. Biologically, the lineage of life unravels and reforms within the complex tapestry of evolution beyond humanity. Species extinctions, accelerated by previous human pressures and climatic shifts, imprint a legacy of loss and opportunity. Yet evolutionary processes regenerate diversity through speciation, adaptation, and migration. Novel ecosystems arise, filling niches vacated or created by evolutionary novelty. These ecosystems, shaped by climatic fluctuations, geological upheaval, and ecological interactions, narrate life's infinite capacity for reinvention. Forests, the green cathedrals of Earth, extend vast canopies over continents. Ancient trees mold soils and shape microclimates, fostering biodiversity cradles for insects, birds, mammals, and fungi. These forests are diverse mosaics, reflecting millennia of succession, species interplay, and climatic variability. Some forests harbor descendants of species once iconic during human times, others epitomize entirely new evolutionary assemblages, testifying to the dynamic flow of life. Grasslands and savannas, balanced by periodic fires and herbivore grazing, expand and contract with climate cycles. Trophic chains within these systems are robust, herbivore populations cycle naturally, predators maintain population control, and plant species diversity sustains through evolutionary adaptations. These open biomes serve critical ecological functions, including carbon sequestration, soil stabilization, and habitat connectivity. Wetlands and floodplains flourish as rivers follow natural courses through expansive deltas, flood seasons nurture biodiversity, and aquatic systems stabilize. The interconnection of these freshwater habitats supports amphibians, fish, and bird migrations, acting as keystone networks for ecosystem resilience. While anthropogenic pollutants gradually wane, legacy contaminants persist in some areas, creating patchy complexities in habitat quality. Oceanic systems evolve in response to persistent acidification, changing circulation, and temperature regimes. Coral reefs rebound in cooler refuges yet remain fragile. Marine food webs rebalance in the absence of overfishing, with apex predators reclaiming dominance. Ocean sediments preserve evidence of microplastic pollution and heavy metals but also show signs of biological recovery. The deep sea, with its isolated and stable ecosystems, maintains ancient lineages while slowly adapting to surface-driven ecological transitions. Species continue evolutionary experiments through genetic diversification, hybrid zones, and niche exploitation. New forms arise in isolated refuges or transitional ecozones, demonstrating the creative force of natural selection unbounded by human interference. These adaptations include physiological, behavioral, and morphological innovations reflecting new environmental pressures and ecological opportunities. Natural disturbances, fires, storms, volcanic eruptions shape landscapes cyclically, ensuring dynamic equilibria that prevent ecological stagnation. These forces maintain biodiversity by opening habitats, cycling nutrients, and fostering growth and decline rhythms that sustain rich ecosystems. Geochemical cycles and atmospheric composition gradually revert toward pre-human baselines, modulated by the lasting effects of anthropogenic emissions and climate perturbations. Carbon and nitrogen cycles stabilize as vegetation recovers and microbial processes cleanse soils and waters. The ozone layer undergoes restoration, enhancing life's resilience to ultraviolet radiation. However, feedback loops such as permafrost thaw and oceanic methane release generate episodic climate instabilities, shaping evolutionary and ecological outcomes. Glacial and polar systems experience marked transformations. Ice sheets wax and wane with orbital cycles, cold biomes fluctuate with glacial cycles. These changes govern sea levels, ocean circulation patterns, and climatic zones, influencing species' geographic distributions and evolutionary pressures. The cryosphere remains a powerful agent of planetary change, shaping habitats from mountains to coastal plains. Hydrological systems mature into natural cycles with dynamic interplay among precipitation, evaporation, and runoff. River flows and aquifers fluctuate seasonally and climatically, supporting diverse biomes. Wetlands and floodplains expand connectivity throughout continents, augmenting biodiversity and ecological services such as carbon storage, flood buffering, and water purification. The long-term fate of technological artifacts integrates into the planetary geological archive. Plastics break down chemically and mechanically, embedding micro and nanoparticles within sediments and ice. Metals corrode, leaving geochemical footprints. Some artifacts become encapsulated in mineral deposits, preserving snapshots of civilization's material culture. These technofossils mark a unique geological horizon distinguishable from previous geological epochs. Light pollution's absence restores night skies to natural darkness, reinstating astronomical cycles' importance for ecological processes. Organisms dependent on moonlight, stars, and seasonal cues realign behaviors, breeding, and migrations to celestial rhythms. This realignment fosters ecological stability and richness in nocturnal and crepuscular species. Evolutionary dynamics proceed in response to shifting habitats, climate, and interspecies relationships. Genetic drift, natural selection, and gene flow sculpt biodiversity through speciation events and extinctions. The emergence of novel forms and complexes perpetuates the continuity of life, melding legacy and innovation in ecological mosaics. Earth's future, millions of years hence, displays the intertwined products of persistence and transformation. Geological processes etch a record of human influence, atmospheric and oceanic changes, and biological responses. Ecosystems regenerate yet carry scars, species adapt yet recall genetic ancestries. Life's story remains vibrant, punctuated by upheaval and continuity, independence and memory. In the far reaches of time, Earth endures as a living monument to the brief but intense age when an intelligent species rose to planetary dominance and eventually vanished. This epoch, recorded in stone and genetic lineages, inspires deep reflection on fragility, stewardship, and the eternal flux of life and landscapes. The planet, dynamic and patient, continues its endless dance, inviting future chapters to be written in the ever-evolving saga of life. In the unimaginable expanse of deep time, tens to hundreds of millions of years beyond humanity's extinction, Earth's story transforms once more into an epic saga of geological renewal, climatic flux, and evolutionary innovation. Each layer of rock and ice, each valley carved by time, and each lineage adapting and evolving, speaks to a planet both scarred and vibrant, a testament to the enduring dance between physical forces and life's relentless capacity for change. The continents continue their ancient migrations under the ever-shifting tectonic plates. Large landmasses, torn and reassembled over eons, form new supercontinents, rekindling cycles that echoes past worlds like Pangaea. These gigantic continental unions profoundly affect climate, ocean circulation, and global biodiversity patterns. The merging and rifting of plates generate mountain ranges, basins, and volcanic belts, continuously shaping habitats and atmospheric gases for ensuing epochs. Geological processes drive the profound reformation of Earth's surface. Mountains rise as plate collisions compress crustal material, while erosion alters landscapes by stripping rock, depositing sediments, and reshaping river valleys and coastlines. Vast volcanic activity recycles carbon into the atmosphere, influencing greenhouse gas concentrations and global climate. Deep ocean trenches and mid-ocean ridges facilitate plate recycling and heat flow from the Earth's mantle, powering cycles of continental drift and volcanic activity crucial to planetary habitability. The sedimentary record, deeply layered and rich, carries the indelible legacy of human civilization. Embedded within rock strata are microplastics, heavy metals, isotopic anomalies from nuclear activities, and synthetic compounds fossilized into mineral matrices. These technofossils form a distinct geological horizon and unmistakable marker to any far-future geologist or cosmic observer of a species that transiently altered planetary systems. Over millions of years, natural geological processes partially obscure but never erase this global signature. Climatic patterns over these timescales obey planetary mechanics and atmospheric chemistry shifts, shaped by solar cycles, volcanic activity, and carbon feedback loops. Solar luminosity gradually increases, warming Earth slowly over vast epochs. Natural greenhouse gas cycles adjust to changing biospheric outputs and geological sinks. Ice ages recur. Polar ice expands and contracts, and climates oscillate between hothouse and icehouse phases, driving mass extinctions and radiations in parallel. Life itself continues its ceaseless enterprise, evolving and adapting to the ever-changing world. Biodiversity patterns experience cycles of mass diversification and extinction caused by climate extremes, asteroidal impacts, and volcanic supereruptions. New forms emerge, ecosystems reorganize, and evolutionary pressures select for novel adaptations shaped by latitude, altitude, and habitat variability. Life's complexity waxes and wanes but never ceases its forward motion. Forests flourish anew, their composition shaped by millennia of evolutionary history and climatic cycles. Ancient trees reach colossal ages, forming complex habitats for myriad organisms. Biogeochemical cycles within these forests regulate carbon storage, soil formation, and nutrient availability essential to long-term ecosystem stability. Forests react dynamically to periodic fires, pests, and climatic variability, maintaining resilience over geological timescales. Grasslands and savannas, maintained and renewed by natural fire regimes and herbivory, cover vast expanses. Their ecosystems support intricate food webs involving large herbivores, small mammals, carnivores, and decomposers. Over evolutionary times, these systems adapt to climatic shifts and fire frequencies, shaping diverse assemblages of flora and fauna uniquely suited to open, sunlit habitats. Wetlands and floodplains expand in extent, driven by river dynamics unimpeded by artificial barriers. These habitats serve as ecological cradles for aquatic and semi-aquatic species, acting as vital filters for water quality and stores of carbon. The connectivity among freshwater ecosystems supports complex life cycles including amphibian reproductive migrations and fish spawning runs important for sustaining biodiversity. Oceanic ecosystems respond to the interplay of chemistry, temperature, and biological activity. Coral and calcareous organisms face challenges from fluctuating oceanic pH and thermal variation, but isolated refugia allow gradual recovery and species diversification. Fish populations and apex predators stabilize, restoring food web relationships disturbed for millions of years. The ocean's interior, home to ancient and mysterious species, continues slow evolutionary processes shaped by nutrient availability and deep-sea currents. Evolutionary processes venture into unexpected territories. Species radiate into novel niches, utilizing unique traits fostered by isolated refuges and transient habitats. Genetic drift, mutation, and hybridization drive new lineage formations. Symbiotic relationships evolve, enhancing ecosystem function and species survival. The adaptive radiation reflects life's enduring creativity beyond any one ecological or geological constraint. Natural perturbations, volcanism, meteorite impacts, climate forcing periodically disrupt ecosystems. These events cause localized and global extinctions, but also open ecological niches for diversification. The interplay of disturbance and recovery supports a dynamic biosphere characterized by flux rather than static equilibrium. Geochemical cycles continue balancing Earth's systems. Carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus cycles regulate atmospheric composition, ocean productivity, and terrestrial fertility. Microbial processes accelerate decomposition and chemical transformation, fostering soil formation and nutrient recycling critical for life. Climate forcing fluctuates, influenced by geological events and the gradual brightening of the sun. Ice ages cycle with orbital variations, altering sea levels and habitat distribution. Warmer intervals expand tropical biomes while cold periods extend glacier or ice sheets, modifying species ranges and evolutionary pressures. Glacial and polar biomes oscillate dramatically, affected by global climate patterns. Ice advances and retreats sculpt landscapes, influence ocean circulation, and impact atmospheric conditions. Species adapt migration strategies and physiological responses to survive within fluctuating cold zones. Atmospheric conditions gradually approach pre-Anthropocene baselines, with ozone layers and air quality improving over millions of years. However, residual pollutants leave traces in ice cores and sediment profiles, a long-lasting imprint of human industry. Hydrological patterns re-establish their natural variability. Rivers flood, droughts cycle, and hydrological connectivity among wetlands and floodplains promotes diversity. Aquatic systems integrate with terrestrial ecosystems supporting complex life cycles across realms. Human artifacts and technofossils quietly fuse into Earth's geological archive. Plastics fragment and chemically alter, eventually transforming into mineral-like substances. Concrete and metals degrade but leave trace elements. These records stand as geological testimonies of a once advanced civilization for any distant future discovery. Natural cycles of light, day, and night synchronize organisms' biological clocks. The moon phases, star positions, and seasonal markers govern reproductive and migratory behaviors, enhancing ecosystem regulation and biodiversity. Evolution continues shaping life's intricate networks across planetary habitats. New biological kingdoms emerge, ecosystems diversify, and genetic richness flourishes, symbolizing life's unending adaptation and renewal. Ultimately, Earth in the vastness of deep time exemplifies a planet shaped by physical forces and life's tenacity. The legacy of humanity endures, paradoxically, as both a faint geological footprint and a catalyst for ecological transformation. The planet's story unfolds eternally, with life perpetually reinventing its place upon a dynamic, evolving stage. Spanning billions of years beyond human existence, Earth's geological saga unfolds in rhythms determined by cosmic forces, tectonic processes, and the persistent resilience and transformation of life. In this era, incomprehensibly vast in time, humanity's transient spark fades against the relentless currents of planetary evolution, yet its imprint is immortalized in rock, sediment, and the very chemical fabric of the biosphere. This section explores Earth's metamorphosis far into the future, where deep time sculpts landscapes, climates, and life anew. The solar evolution drives fundamental planetary changes. In roughly 1 billion years, the Sun's luminosity will increase by about 10, intensifying the heat delivered to Earth's surface. This climatic escalation will initiate a moist greenhouse effect, evaporating oceans gradually and disrupting the planet's hydrological balance. As water vapor rises, it catalyzes further greenhouse warming, propelling Earth toward conditions hostile to life as previously known. Over this time span, atmospheric carbon dioxide levels will diminish significantly, falling below thresholds for photosynthesis in many plants. Without sufficient CO2, traditional C3 plants will disappear, threatening the base of terrestrial food chains. Some plants adapted with C4 carbon fixation mechanisms may persist temporarily. Ultimately, however, photosynthetic life as a whole will decline, triggering cascading extinctions across the animal kingdom reliant on plants for sustenance. Earth's tectonic engine endures for hundreds of millions to over 1 billion years. Continents drift, collide, and potentially reunite into supercontinents, a cycle observed repeatedly in Earth's history. New supercontinents formed through plate convergence will reshape global climate patterns by altering ocean currents and atmospheric circulation. Mountain building due to continental collisions influences erosion rates and river paths, deeply affecting biodiversity and habitat distribution. Simultaneously, vast volcanic activity continues, influenced by mantle convection and tectonic motions. Supervolcanoes, though infrequent, reshape regional and global climates through massive eruptions injecting aerosols and gases into the atmosphere. Prolonged volcanic winters and greenhouse gas fluctuations trigger climatic extremes impacting all life forms. The planet's volcanism becomes a crucial geological force shaping the future biosphere and atmospheric chemistry. Magnetospheric and geodynamo dynamics gradually weaken as Earth's internal heat declines. Approximately 2–3 billion years from now, the geodynamo may cease, ending Earth's magnetic field generation. This absence of magnetic shielding allows solar and cosmic radiation to strip away the atmosphere's volatile components more rapidly. The loss of protective magnetosphere accelerates atmospheric loss and surface radiation exposure, further challenging life's survival. Geological erosion and sedimentation persist across continents and ocean basins. Mountain ranges suffer gradual wear, soil profiles thicken, and river sediments continually redistribute across floodplains and coastlines. New sedimentary deposits capture changing ocean chemistry and biological remains, fossilizing Earth's biological and geochemical evolution. Over geological epochs, these layers catalog epochal transitions in climate, biodiversity, and atmospheric composition. Life, although struggling, persists in refugia adapted to extreme conditions. Hyperthermophiles, extremophiles, and organisms inhabiting subterranean, deep sea, or polar environments represent the last bastions of life on Earth. These species evolve novel biochemical pathways to cope with progressively harsh habitats, including high radiation, heat, and chemical stress. Their survival extends the biosphere's tenure on Earth amidst escalating environmental extremes. The planet's surface undergoes profound physical and chemical transformations. High temperatures and reduced water availability foster desertification of large continental areas. Soil degradation intensifies, organic carbon diminishes, and erosion rates escalate. Unique geological and atmospheric feedbacks generate intermittent periods of intense aridity or transient moisture, shaping the distribution and evolution of remaining biota. Polar ice caps retreat decisively with global warming trends. Glacial and periglacial landscapes give way to weathered rock and sediment. Rising sea levels inundate coastal plains and low-lying regions, reshaping continental shelves and coastal ecosystems. The ocean's volume and chemistry shift dramatically as vast water masses evaporate into space, driven by solar heating and breakdown of the hydrological cycle. Ocean depths become increasingly hostile to life as stratification alters nutrient cycling. Biogeochemical feedbacks exacerbate oxygen depletion in deeper waters, reducing habitable zones for aerobic organisms and shifting the balance toward anaerobic metabolisms. Changes in surface productivity respond to atmospheric composition, ocean temperature, and circulation changes. Technofossils and human artifacts become increasingly fragmented and deeply buried within Earth's lithosphere. Over billions of years, chemical degradation and intense geological processes transform many synthetic compounds. Yet some mineralized residues and isotopic signatures persist as faint but identifiable traces of a species that once reshaped a world. The Earth's night sky, progressively untouched by artificial light, aligns fully with natural cosmic rhythms. This celestial harmony influences surviving organisms' life cycles and behavioral patterns. Natural seasonal and astronomical feedback mechanisms synchronize biospheric processes across latitudes, stabilizing ecosystems that persist in fragmentary forms. Evolutionary innovations occur largely in microorganisms and extremophiles that exploit niches resilient to planetary changes. Genetic drift, horizontal gene transfer, and mutation foster biodiversity on microscopic scales. Life's fundamental processes unfold in extreme and isolated environments: hydrothermal vents, subsurface rocks, and sporadic water pockets retaining a vestige of Earth's diverse biosphere. Eventually, Earth approaches a scorched Earth phase. Approximately 4 billion years from now, runaway greenhouse heating elevates surface temperatures comparable to present Venus conditions. Oceans evaporate completely, atmospheres become dense with greenhouse gases, and surface materials melt. This ultimate climatic catastrophe eradicates remaining life and irreversibly transforms terrestrial environments. Throughout these vast timelines, Earth remains locked in cosmic gravitational dances with the Sun, Moon, and other celestial bodies. Orbital variations, axial tilt fluctuations, and rotational dynamics continue to influence climate patterns and planetary stability. Milankovitch cycles persist as pacemakers in glacial and interglacial rhythms until Earth's physical parameters shift drastically. Finally, in roughly 7.5 billion years, the Sun, evolved into a red giant, expands engulfing the current orbits of inner planets. The Earth's surface vaporizes or is consumed into the solar envelope, ending its planetary saga. Remnant planetary material may coalesce into new bodies or be expelled into interstellar space. The legacy of Earth, including the brief geological epoch of humanity, becomes a footnote in the cosmic story of star formation, destruction, and rebirth. This grand odyssey spanning billions of years beyond human existence encapsulates the ultimate impermanence and transformation inherent in planetary life. The story of Earth affirms the transient nature of civilizations, the enduring forces of geology and life, and the sublime evolution of a dynamic world continuously shaped by internal and cosmic energies. In the closing chapter of this imagined journey, the Earth, resilient and ever-transforming, stands as both witness and protagonist to an eternal story, one that transcends species, civilizations, and epochs. Our brief presence, though monumental in its impacts, is a mere ripple in the boundless ocean of geological and biological time. The deep future of the planet invites reflection, humility, and hope, urging us to ponder not only what has been lost but what endures, evolves, and flourishes beyond human tenure. This story, stretching across billions of years, is one of profound continuity amid change. Earth's physical and ecological systems innovate, collapse, and renew repeatedly, governed by laws that transcend individual lifetimes and cultures. The rise and fall of species, the shifting of continents, the waxing and waning of oceans, and the rhythms of climate all converge in an ever-evolving planetary symphony. In this dance, humanity is one fleeting motif within a composition that plays on, expanding its complexity and depth. The geological strata remember human footprints, plastics, metals, synthetic compounds, and isotopic shifts marking a unique era. Yet, these signs become pale shadows in layers shared with the fossils of countless species past and future. The Earth's memory is both intimate and vast, capturing the transient and the permanent, the crafted and the natural. It is a record not of conquest but of transformation, offering future observers a window into the complex relationship between a species and its planet. Life, in its remarkable adaptability, endures beyond the extinction and evolution of our kind. From hardy microbes to complex ecosystems, the biosphere reflects an unfolding narrative of resilience and creativity. New species emerge to fill vanished niches, ecological networks rewrite themselves, and evolutionary processes innovate endlessly. This living legacy is a testament to the durability of life itself, echoing across time as a reminder that extinction, while profound, is also a catalyst for renewal. As Earth cycles through ice ages, supercontinents, and climate extremes, the biosphere adapts and flourishes in new and unpredictable forms. The extinction events that shaped life's history continue to provide opportunities for diversification, prompting bursts of evolution and species radiations. These patterns suggest a planet not static but dynamically alive, reshaping itself through interplay between physical forces and biological invention. the future Earth reminds us of the delicate balance underlying planetary health. Feedback loops, chemical cycles, and ecosystem dynamics sustain life but are subject to thresholds and tipping points. The human epoch exemplifies the power a species may wield and the responsibility that comes with such influence. Reflecting on this invites us to consider stewardship and sustainability within our limited time, emphasizing that how we act now resonates far beyond our era. This vision of Earth's long trajectory encourages a profound sense of connection to the planet, to all species past and future, and to the cosmos. It challenges the anthropocentric narratives that place humans above or outside natural systems, instead revealing our place as part of a complex, intertwined web. This perspective fosters humility, respect, and a renewed commitment to cherishing and protecting the living world we inhabit. The journey through time past, present, and future engages not only science but philosophy, art, and culture. It invites us to marvel at the majesty of life, to question our impact, and to imagine a planet that continually rewrites its story. Each epoch, each species, and each change adds depth to the ever-expanding epic of Earth, an epic in which we are both participants and observers. Thank you for joining this contemplation of a world without us, for exploring the vast possibilities of Earth's future, and for sharing in the wonder of life's endurance amidst change. Your attention honors the planet's story and strengthens the collective hope that guides us toward a more harmonious coexistence with nature. If you found value in this exploration, please consider supporting the channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing. Together, we can foster awareness, curiosity, and care for the extraordinary planet we call home. May this vision inspire thoughtful action and a renewed commitment to the stewardship of Earth's remarkable and fragile ecosystems. From the smallest microbe to the grandest mountain, from the whispering forests to the deep ocean trenches, Earth's song plays on a timeless melody of life, change, and endless possibility. Let us listen, learn, and join in this eternal dance with reverence and hope.